Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Ranking the Albums. Today, in the co-captain's chair from in the Prague seat, Mr. George Lamie. What's happening, my friend? How are you?
Good, good.
We're doing tribaltech today. Some of you may be saying, I'm not quite sure who that is. Well, unless you're a fusion fan and paying attention to that kind of little genre that we like to talk about here a lot on the channel, tribaltech was a pretty serious player in mid-late 80s and into the 90s. And in fact, they recorded into the 2000s. The last time we saw them on record was 2012. So it's been a while. But of course, this is the band starring Scott Henderson on guitar and Gary Willis on bass. They've had lots of other members during the during their time with us here, but they had the what is considered the classic lineup: Kirk Covington on drums and Scott Kinsey on keyboards, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's kind of considered the classic lineup of the band. And George, remember how many albums they did together? That four-piece.
That lineup solidified on the fifth album.
Okay, so half their discography.
Yeah.
Yeah, and before that, a bigger ensemble with sax and woodwinds and percussion and all that kind of stuff. But then they decided to go the four-piece route. And for my money, that's I think when tribaltech really became a force to be reckoned with. Though I love the early albums too. So this is a really good discography. I don't know how George feels, but I don't think there's a bad album, not a clunker in this entire list. So kind of hard to rank, but there's obviously some that are a little bit stronger than the others. So we're going to start off at number 10, work our way to our favorites, number 1, and I'll have George kick us off with his number 10.
All right. My number 10 is the only one that I would say I think maybe is kind of a flunker. 1999's Thick.
Right here.
This is when they are heavily into improv. They actually set out to make an album that gets to the studio with no songs written and just improv the entire thing. And sometimes that's cool, but sometimes it gets a little drifty and a lot of nothing going on at points. There's maybe 2 or 3 songs that I think are decent songs, but Jalapeno and Chica Vencino. But for the most part, it's not quite to my taste.
Yeah, that's my number 10 as well. I don't dislike it at all. I just think that out of all of them, this is it works the least. You're absolutely right. It's very loose. More of a bunch of jams. The one thing about tribaltech that I always loved is their song, kind of like the Electric Band, Chick Corea's Electric Band. You can tell the songs are really well composed and they're very melodic, yet everything makes perfect sense. I'm not sure everything makes perfect sense on here. There's kind of that lack of groove on this album as well. And I mean, let's face it, not every band can do improvisations, right? Not every band in the world is like King Crimson. And I think as this is the one and only time they did something like this, I think they probably figured it out as well. But Jalapeno is awesome. You May Remember Me, I like. What Has He Had has a really good Henderson solo. I almost said Holdsworth. Got to get away from the Holdsworth thing. That was last week already.
Yeah.
Title track is kind of cool. It's kind of funky and goes in all sorts of different directions. But yeah, I mean, this is it's good. It's just, if I was going to steer someone towards tribaltech, it would not be this one. And it wouldn't be my second choice, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, or seventh. I think they have a lot better albums than this, but it's still, I like it. I just don't like it nearly as much as the other ones. So there you have it. Number 9, back to you.
My number 9 is the follow-up, 2000's Rocket Science.
I don't have that one.
Yeah.
That is so. All right. So just so everybody knows a little bit of history of how this show came together. So George and I have long been talking about our love for this band. And then, one day he was like, hey, if you're ever interested in doing a ranking show, let me know. I'd love to do it with you. And I was like, oh, I would definitely like to do that. And then I realized that they had a bunch of CDs. I had a good chunk of this catalog on cassette back in the day. I wore those out. I replaced a few of them when CDs first came out. And then I just like never bought any of the other ones. So I was like, well, you know what? I need to go get a couple of those other ones that I'm missing. And some of them now are like hopelessly out of print. So like Rocket Science from 2000 is the only one that I couldn't snag a copy of. And it's like major, major bucks. I was like, well, you know what? And I think George will say the same thing. We both were like, well, we got YouTube. That'll have to suffice here to kind of get reacquainted with that album. So anyway, back to you. Just wanted to kind of throw that
Yeah,
out.
this is the only one I never owned. I used to have Thick and I sold it at some point. The Rocket Science, I just never tracked down for whatever reason. It's a step up from Thick, that's for sure. The opening track, Saturn V, to me, that's an all-time tribaltech song. I mean,
Great.
incredible Gary Willis space solo. There's other good songs on there too. Space Camel in particular, that's a really good one. Captain Kirk. But there are some inconsistencies with the material, I feel. There's songs I feel like I can skip, and I usually can't say that. So for that reason, I would put it at number 9.
And a lot of that kind of bluesy, funky thing started coming into the music around this time, right? Which we saw Scott dive heavily into on his solo albums. Not that that's a bad thing. I don't know how much I like that kind of thing going on in this band. That's my number 9 as well.
His soloing changed a lot. It really did.
Oh yeah, big time. Big time. Yeah, he went from this kind of Holdsworth style, the whole legato thing, right? And then he started doing a lot more pentatonic scales and still really good, but that's very different than what he was doing early on. So, some people didn't like the later stuff or some of his other solo stuff. Some people like the earlier jazz, straight jazz fusion stuff. It's, all depends on what you dig, but I've read interviews with Scott where he says that's really where his heart lies. So go figure. And it's funny to go back to when George and I were first talking about doing this show. I was raving on and on and on about Scott Henderson. And then I made a comment one day about like a great bass solo by Gary Willis in one of these tracks. And George was like, yeah, he's the MVP of this band, always has been. I'm like, yeah, you know what? You're probably right. Because he is a seriously great player that never gets his due. Never gets his due. What is he doing now anyway, now that we're talking about him?
Not a lot. He lives in Spain now. And I mean, obviously, if you're in Spain, you're not in it,
Yeah. That's weird. Yeah, I haven't heard since the last tribaltech album. I haven't heard his name at all. It's like, this is a guy that should be on the tip of every, jazz and fusion fan's tongue. I mean, it's just, he's that good. He's that good.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, number 8. What do you got?
Did you do your 9?
Yep, Rocket Science.
Oh, you too? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you said I think all I was going to say on here. I mean, I like Mini Me. That's kind of like a cool tune. Moonshine's pretty good. Econoline, I kind of like. I mean, I like the album. It's just it's a little more on the bluesy side, I think, than what I really like from this band. But I dig it. It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
All right, here's where I surprise you. My number 8.
Wow. Yeah, that's a surprise.
Now listen.
Wow.
I know this is a favorite of the fan base. The Big Wave, the first track, is my favorite tribaltech song in the whole discography.
Wow.
But I feel like this is where the improv first started, some of it. And then that's one thing. And I feel like the other good songs beyond the Big Wave are maybe not as good as the good songs on the other discs. I like Torque, and I like Stupid and Root Food. Great bass solo in that song also. But some of the stuff, it gets a little meandering for me. So I probably listen to this one less than the rest.
Wow. Okay. Surprised. I am surprised. We'll talk more about that one a little later, I think. Nice shirt, by the way. I like that. Wear it proudly.
Very good.
My number 8 from 1993, Face First. I bought this when it first came out. This is still the original CD that I bought way back then. I dig this album. I don't like it as much as the other early albums from this period. I hear, you're starting to see the funk and the blues start to come into the music. Again, not that there's necessarily anything wrong with that. Title track kicks things off in a great way. 7 minutes of, tons of groove and, wicked soloing as always. Canine's another really good one with some really cool Scott Henderson lines, and the rhythms are absolutely great. After Hours is cool. Salt Lick is the big, lengthy fusion piece on here, which is absolutely tremendous and just great soloing, nearly 10 minutes long. Oh yeah, okay. It's pretty cool. Like, for the bluesy stuff, I kind of like that. Henderson is just smoldering on that. The Crawling Horror, that's some great Gary Willis on that one. I like that a bit. For me, what the hell were they thinking with Boat Gig? I mean, they're going to put this, vocal blues song on here. It just sounds completely out of place.
Yeah.
I just don't get that at all. The Precipice is a pretty good song, but yeah, I don't know. For me, there's like 3 or 4 tunes on here that don't really do much for me. The rest of it's really good, but yeah, Boat Gig. I remember when that album first came out, I was like, what is this? This doesn't belong here. That's not what I want to hear. But as we saw a few years later, I mean, that's kind of where Scott has always been.
They actually took that out and played it on tour. I can't imagine.
Yeah, I don't know why. At the time, because I mean, if we go back to 1993, the band had been around by that time, not quite a decade, and they were, known for being a straight fusion band. I mean, and their early albums are really jazzy. So then to come out with something like that, a little puzzling. But hey, that's what they wanted to do.
Covington loves to sing, apparently. So
really, okay. Well, that's there you have it.
Yeah. Well, my number 7.
There you go.
You hit on the highlight songs to me too. The title track, great groove. Canine, both of those tunes were in the set list all the way till they broke up. I mean, they're classics.
Here's the guy, by the way.
Like you said, Salt Lake is the big fusion tour de force. The longest song they ever did, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. Yep.
So, I mean, the good songs are really good, but there's just some songs I'm like, So I put it at 7.
My number 7 is from 1995, Reality Check. I gotta say, I do like their logo. It's kind of different,
cool,
right? It's pretty neat, and I like the fact that they basically kept it for all of their albums, right? For the most part, yeah, I think they did, right? Yeah, every album. Well, even Dr. He has it. Okay, yeah, they got it. I love that. I like when a band sticks to a logo throughout their whole career. It doesn't change it like every single album. That drives me absolutely bonkers. But yeah, Reality Check, good strong album. Stella by Infrared, High Particle Neutron Beam. Say that 5 times, right? Killer song. Henderson is just like a beast in that song. So good. Nightclub is really funky. Hole in the Head is really good. Premonition is really strong, enjoyable album. I mean, I know it's kind of like right in the middle of the pack, but it's most of these albums. I think we kind of got the ones that, well, at least I did, got the ones out of the way that are probably, 6 or 7 out of 10s, right? I think it's fair, right? I mean, because I think a good chunk of this catalog, if I was reviewing all these now, I would probably give at least 5, maybe 6 of them 10 out of 10s or 9 out of 10, easy. So, and I think here is where this is probably a good 8, I would say, close to it. So everything else, for me, everything else going forward is
really good.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
My
number 6. Oh wow, Nomad. Okay.
Nomad. This is actually the last one I got at the time I started collecting. I couldn't find it for a while. And I ended up finding it. I was in vacation in Vegas and I came across it. I couldn't believe it.
In a record store?
Yeah.
Wow. Jesus. Well, I mean, wasn't that on Relativity? Yeah, that's why probably, because Relativity was their stuff was showing up in a lot of record and CD shops back in the early '90s
Yeah.
for a brief time. That's probably why, because I would think any of these other ones, man, you'd never find them anywhere.
For me, this one, Bofat, probably my favorite song on here. Renegade, Self Defense, two Willis compositions, very, very good. Um, Nomad's a really good song, the title track, a long Henderson piece. This is the last of the percussion and more piano playing keyboardists,
Yeah.
which I like that era. But you can kind of feel a little bit of a transition where maybe they're getting away from that. Plus, there's like two or three fairly snoozy ballads on here. It's kind of a little tough to get through sometimes, but I mean, the good stuff on here makes up for it for sure.
Yeah, some really good stuff on there. And that might be my favorite album cover of theirs.
It's interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's pretty, whatever the hell it's supposed to be, it's pretty cool. I always like that. All right, my number 6 is, and I had a really hard time with these going forward. I had a lot of movers and shakers in my top 6. This was originally, when I first started putting this list together, was higher, then it was lower, then it was higher, and I find, sometimes when I have too much stuff moving around, I'm overthinking it. So I was all right, I'm just going to stop. But I'm going to go with the debut from '85, Spears. Quite good. Easily their jazziest album, I would say. Their first two are pretty similar, I think. But here you have the expanded lineup. Okay, you got sax and flute, percussion, piano, electric piano. It's not as synth driven, but really good. It's just got this upbeat nature. I mean, this album is very typical of a lot of the fusion stuff from the mid '80s. I mean, it's kind of light and airy. It's not as kind of dark and rock based as some of their later albums were, but there's still plenty of, pretty searing stuff on here. Pumpkinhead, it's great. Ivy Towers, another fantastic song. I like the, you don't really hear a lot of acoustic guitar on these albums, but you hear a bit on here. And I like the acoustic guitar and piano on that track. Title song, got a smoldering Holdsworth solo on it. Big fun, really busy, really enjoyable. Like I said, a lot going on here. More of a jazz album, less of the kind of go for the jugular fusion we would see over the next couple albums. But I think composition wise, performance wise, this is more of like a kind of big band tribaltech, and I think it really works. Very melodic. It's really, really enjoyable. Could be higher. Like I said, it was higher on my list originally. Ask me next week, it might be my number 2. Who knows? But I dig it.
All right.
The top 5.
My number 5. X.
Yeah.
This is a reunion album, 2012. So they went from 2000 to 2012 without anything. They get back together. It did like a hybrid concept with this one. They each took like 3 songs a piece, and they started it, and then they would send it to one of the other guys to embellish it. And at the end, it came back to the original guy who started it. Kind of a weird idea, but for me, it totally works. Time Lapse in particular, great Willis tune. But there's a lot of great songs on there. Anthem's a great tune. Gravity. Honestly, there's probably no bad tunes on this one, which, given 12 years away, my expectations weren't so high, but I think they came through with this.
Do you agree, if this is the last we ever see from them, that they went out on a high note?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Not that we want that to be the case, guys. If any of you are watching, we would love to see more from you. But I mean, if there was never another tribaltech album, and it's also my number 5, great way to go out, right?
Yeah. From what I'm hearing, yeah, it is it.
That is, huh?
Yeah. At least as of now.
Wow. All right. Well, that's almost a decade ago already, right? So it'll be a decade next year. And of course, this was on Tone Center, which was, a label that had all sorts of great stuff coming out at the time, right?
Yeah.
That's where all these bands wanted to be. They wanted to be on Tone Center. Mike Varney, executive producing, dishing out some cash to get these things going. But yeah, I agree with everything George said. This is a very strong album. Mech X, so good. Got Faith and Fat, Time Lapse. I mean, just all sorts of really good stuff. Palm Moon Plaza. Great Henderson soloing on this one. Oof, just so good. And yeah, I guess this is the kind of the swan song here, but great stuff. You know what? I wouldn't be afraid to if anybody came up to me and say, where do I start with Tribal Tech? I was like, well, you want to start there and work your way back or whatever, or start there, then start at the beginning, whatever. But I think X is definitely a upper echelon album for them.
And how many bands can their reunion album stand up to the old stuff? I mean, it's pretty rare.
Yeah, that is true. That it's funny because you know, you and I have done shows before on the Electric Band. It's like, and Return to Forever talked about them as well. It's like, you know, wouldn't it have been cool if either one of those two came back for one last album? Obviously, without Chick, that's not going to happen anymore, and put out something like that.
Yeah.
Right. You know, as it is, that last Electric Band album that came out, geez, how many years ago was that now? That was really good. And that's another case of, you know, that we didn't know at the time that was going to be the last one, but that was great. You know, but Return to Forever reunited, and we never got that studio album from them. Bunch of live things, but no studio album. So, oh well, I guess we'll have to be happy with X. Anyway, we got more to talk about here. Let's not get all depressed here if there's no more Tribal Tech. We're celebrating the music here, right? There we go.
All right. Number 4.
Reality Check.
Reality Check. Promo, as you can see. Yeah, it's this mid-90s, 1995, just a bunch of great songs on here. You got, like you said, Stella by Infrared High Particle Neutron Beam. That's the jammer. I mean, that's heavy. This is a band that could appeal to guys that mostly think fusion's a little bit light, because there is a crunch to it.
Oh yeah.
In the middle on, at least. Yeah, Susie's Ding Bums, Speak, great Willis tune. Hole in the Head, nice long one. Oh, that's their longest song, 12 minutes. Forgot about that.
Oh, so it's a little bit longer than the other one.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a great album, and the tours from this produced a lot of really good shows. But yeah, this is a really good record.
Never got to see them.
Oh.
And you know what? To be honest with you, I don't even remember ever seeing them advertised as playing anywhere near me, ever. Go figure. I would think probably most of the shows that they would have played in the New York or New York City area probably would have been in the 90s. And God, I was doing all sorts of weird stuff in the 90s. So it's like, I don't think I went to a ton. I mean, I went to concerts, but I didn't go to a ton of shows in the 90s. So maybe I just kind of like missed them. And they were around. I don't know. Who knows? Because I'm sure they played at places like the Bottom Line and, you know, stuff like that in the city. I'd be interested to go and look back on like some tour dates of theirs and see like where they actually were. So I'm sure they came to Chicago area all the time, right?
I saw them 4 times, yeah.
Wow. Jesus. So how do they rank as far as like a lot of the notable fusion bands you've seen live? How do they rank as far as live performance?
Oh, really good. They, you know, I think they have rock influences too, so they weren't like statues. They, you know, try and keep it a little entertaining. Sometimes you don't get that with fusion guys. They figure the chops are the show. So
I know, or they sit down and they just kind of like, yeah. Well, it's a shame.
I'm trying to think if I have any boots from the New York area. Maybe I'll have to look.
Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna go check out their set history or their touring history and see when those shows might have been and where. Because I'm probably gonna kick myself and be like, oh, I could have gone to that. It was an hour drive or something like that. But it's too late now, obviously. Anyway, my number 4 is self-titled from 1991, Tribal Tech. Again, could have even ranked higher. This is fantastic. And I bought this when it came out. So this was on was this their first Relativity release? I don't remember. Or actually, might have been. When did Nomad come out again? I'm trying to think which one came first.
Nomad is the album before that.
Okay, so that one came out first. Yeah, that's why. But yeah, this is fantastic. This is their 4th album. Signal Path. Great song, right? Just really like majestic. I love the melody in that. Big Girl Blues kind of hints at things to come, I think. Uh, Got to Be, Got TUH and then a B. That's like a burner completely. I mean, this band usually puts at least 2 or 3 of those type of songs on every album where it's just they just let it all loose, and man, you're like sweating when it's done. You're like, oh my god, that's so good. You got Heredia and Willis working really well together on this particular album. Just a lot of great solo and a lot of great rhythms. Peru is kind of really nice and jazzy. Elvis at the Hop, it's got some swing to it. I would have liked to have heard a little more of that type of thing. I thought that's really good. Willis's bass solos and the Necessarily Blonde are just tremendous. Fight the Giant is great. Formula One, it's all good. It's top to bottom really good. I love it. I could have ranked it higher. Like I said, these top 5 were just like almost impossible to rank because they're just really, really good. Really, really good. So that's my number 4.
My number 3,
Dr. He.
Dr. He.
This is where I actually came in. My bass player at the time had heard about this, and so we went and grabbed it and checked it out. We were getting a lot of stuff on Passport Jazz back then, so it made sense. Yeah, this is the era I really like, with the keyboards and the percussionists playing a lot of steel drums and more piano. I think it really worked for them. Title track's great. Mango Prom, another good one. Salsa Lastra. Ominous, the token Gary Willis great track. He always has at least one great track on every album.
Yep.
Yeah, this is just good all the way through. It's really good album.
I like it. It was also my gateway into this band as well. And I remember, and I bought this on cassette. I had this originally on cassette, and I saw it, and I couldn't even tell you where I bought it. And I remember seeing, Scott Henderson, and I was like, oh, that's the guy who I was briefly in the Electric Band. That's the guy who was in Jean-Luc Ponty's band. That's the guy that was in Joe Zawinul's Syndicate band. I was like, I'm going to check this out. And then I bought the cassette, and I felt totally in love with it. I mean, I wore this thing out. So good. I mean, this is like, again, the expanded group with Bob Shepard on sax and flute, Brad Dutz on mallets and percussion, Pat Coyle on keys, Gary Willis, Steve Houghton on drums, and Will Boulware on keys. So big band here for the most part, but classy stuff. I mean, this is just, if you dig that kind of lighter, more melodic jazz fusion from this time period, this is one of the best of that decade. And again, it has its moments of a little more aggressive stuff, and there's plenty of blowing on here, but I think this is probably their most majestic, melodic, pure jazz album. Very playful, a lot of cool rhythms, but just a really, really great album. Mango Prom, Salsa Lastra, I mean, title track, so many really classy, memorable songs on here, and I have fond memories of this over the years, and it's a great one. Could be number higher. Originally, when I was putting this list together, I automatically put that to number 1. But then once I started like re-listening to everything all over again, I was like, well, I could keep it there, or I could move it down a couple notches. I don't know. So, but ultimately, it wound up at number 3, which is a great number 3. Not much separates any of these. Like, if we were to stack them up, it'd be like, we're talking like this, ever so close.
Did you go out and get players shortly after you found tribaltech?
Yeah. And I stumbled upon that somewhere too. And I was like, because, you look at the cover, you're like, whoa, Steve Smith, whoa, T. Lavitz, whoa, Scott Henderson. I mean, all these guys, Jeff Berlin. It's like, holy moly. And I still have not tracked that CD down. I have it because I've had it it's here. It's just, it's not, I mean, most people who are watching probably know that I'm pretty meticulous with how I organize everything. It's all alphabetical by artist or by act, right? And I'm thinking that I put that somewhere. Originally, I thought I put it under H for Henderson, but it's actually should be under P, and I haven't yet tracked it down under P. It's here. I just don't know where it is. But the Players album is phenomenal. Really, really good. And they only ever did that one album. It's like one of those super groups that should have done more. So many of those.
All right. Well, number 2, Spears. This really needs a remaster. That's one of the problems. It's
yeah
very low. Makes it feel like there's no attack. But songwriting wise, just one good song after another.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Caribbean and Big Fun were in the set list from this album all the way till they were done. So that that says a lot about what they thought of those. Pumpkinhead, the Willis tune, great song. And Spears is another one. It's based on a blues, but not the kind of blues everyone's thinking about. I mean, it's a good, really good song. Actually, Sean Lane covered that, so I gotta let you hear that. But yeah, this is a great record. I mean, really good.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those classic debuts. Absolutely. All right, my number 2 was actually a bit lower on George's list, but I told you it was going to rank pretty high for me. Illicit from 1992. And here we're starting to see all of a sudden the weird hair things going on with Mr. Henderson. But yeah, and right on the cover it says, "Warning, contains explicit melodies, suggestive harmony, and graphic rhythms." And that's pretty true. This is a pretty intense album. There's the classic lineup of the band, obviously. Willis, Kinsey, Covington, and Henderson. The Big Wave, I mean, you talked about a lot of the great songs on here. The Big Wave is amazing. Stupid, quite funky. Black Cherry is more laid back. Torque is just mind-blowing. What else? Root Food. Riot's got some great drum soloing. Babylon's got some cool hooks, kind of intricate though. Aftermath, I don't know, I just think this is really cool. And I agree with you, it might be a tune or two that are just not quite up to par with the rest of the album, but for me, the great stuff on this album is so great that it just kept ranking higher and higher on my list. And I had this lower originally, and then I listened to it a couple more times and I'm like, I can't keep this one any lower. It's not going to be my number 1, but so here we are at number 2. And I always kind of dug the album cover. Sometimes you look at it, it's like, all right, is that kind of like this cool looking mountain? It's like, wait a second, or is that a roll of Parmigiano Reggiano? What is it? I don't know. Who cares? Great album though.
I took it to be like a brown paper wrapping.
Yeah, and it could be that too. It could be anything. You look at it long enough, you'll start, yeah, you know what? I do see the wrapping thing. But I mean, you can see like the mountain ridge if you really look at it carefully. But then it's got like the stamp, like you would see on the outside of a block of Parmesan. So I don't know what the hell it is. I think it's pretty cool though, right? Whatever it's supposed to be.
All right.
I think I know what your number 1 is.
Yeah, no surprise.
Yeah.
I got the Henderson autograph.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, this is one of those rare cases where everything you take apart about an album, I think is best here. Production is my favorite production. The lineup, this is the only one with Joey Heredia on drums, and I think he fits really well.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
And the amount of not just good songs, but like standouts, like you said, Signal Path, Got to Be, Formula One, The Necessary Blondes, even a good fusion ballad. I mean, it's almost unheard of. Fight the Giant is the keyboardist contribution. Sub Aqua, I mean, it's just great record. Funny story, the keyboard player David Goldblatt, he left the album, he left the band in the middle of the recording of the album because he had a gig with Diana Ross. Yeah, he's just
Can you blame him?
Hi guys. Yeah, the money's over here.
I got a check coming in for that, so I don't know when I'm going to get paid with you guys. So yeah.
So a lot of the sounds on there are Henderson playing guitar synth because they're not going to sit there and wait to have another keyboard player learn the tunes. So
yeah,
but he did a good job.
I mean, and Goldblatt, I mean, he's played with a lot of people. That guy's been.
Yeah, he's good. He's from, I think he's from Portland, but yeah, he's a real good player.
Yeah, he's been around. All right, my number 1 is Nomad from 1990. Dig this album a lot. Again, like I said, I had a lot of movers and shakers on my list, and when it all came down to it, I really enjoyed this album a lot. I love Renegade. They have, now that you think about it, they have some really good kickoff songs on all their albums, right?
Yeah.
Like, what better way to get you into an album than throwing your hottest track first, right? That's the way to do it. Title track's got more of like kind of like a weird kind of Caribbean feel. They did that from time to time. Robot Immigrants, good song, got some really cool percussion on that. Tunnel Vision is nice and funky, I think, tasty. Henderson solo, Bo Fat is, the other big fusion barn burner on this one.
Yeah.
What else? Nice Goldblatt solo on there. No, No, No is a really good track. I don't know. I dig it a lot. Self-Defense, to me, almost sounds like, and again, talked a lot about how earlier in his career he kind of had that Holdsworth influence going on. I think Self-Defense sounds like maybe Holdsworth playing with the Electric Band, and it's got a really cool Gary Willis bass solo on it as well. So I dig this album, but I like pretty much all these quite a lot.
Yeah.
So like I said, you ask me next week and I might even change this around a little bit, but great albums, great discography. Too bad they're not still around, but I would say for those folks watching who maybe have not kind of taken the dive into tribal tech yet, please don't ask which album to start, because I think you just basically got which album to start from the both of us. But I would say you really can't go wrong with any of them. If you can, the ones you can find, pick them up. If you love, I don't know, I hate to just always list other bands, but if you like the tunefulness of Weather Report, if you like the, just jaw-dropping virtuosity of the Electric Band or Return to Forever, you get a lot of that here. The band can swing at times too. Sometimes their music is really catchy, like the Yellow Jackets, but it's obviously there's a lot more kind of rock firepower in their, obviously in their repertoire. And, Scott Henderson, one of the greats, amazing bass player. Gary Willis, one of the greats, doesn't get enough credit. All the other guys that have been in this band are just absolute pros. And it's a really, really strong discography. And I highly recommend any of them.
I would like to know the commenters, maybe you could say this band did 10 albums without doing a live album. I'm wondering if any other band has ever done that. I can't think.
Wow, yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah. How did that happen?
Yeah.
How did that not happen, I should say?
Henderson's got Holdsworth disease. Like, he's super, super critical of everything he's ever put out. Like, he hates the early albums, hates them. He's on the record as saying he hates them. He would change everything that he did. Like, he's overboard with it, and I don't think he would ever put out a live album. He did a solo one, but with this band, he never felt that they really clicked live. I don't know.
Very strange.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Search for those boots, people. George says they're out there. So very cool. Well, there you have it. So if you are a fan of tribal tech, rank them as you like them in the comments below. If you're not, please go out and listen to some of these albums, report back, let us know what you think. Really good stuff. Really, really good stuff. I've been listening to these guys since just after they first came out, and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of enjoyment over the years. Really, really good band. It was really cool kind of revisiting some of these albums that I haven't listened to in a while over the last couple of weeks. So thank you, George, for doing that. I appreciate it. So everybody watching, visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube.
All the damn
time. So stay tuned. Chuck and I are coming right back. We've got In the Prague Seat tonight with some of our compatriots on that show. So that's happening later on tonight. And you can see George each and every week, for the most part, on Tuesday nights on In the Prague Seat. George and I are also going to be working on some other Ranking the Album shows. So I think we've kind of settled on doing the great German progressive metal band Vandenplas. We might have another very good friend here on the channel join us on that one. So then look for that in the weeks ahead, and probably a whole lot more. So for George Lamie, I am Pete Pardo. We'll see you all real soon. Take care.